Long, long ago, the world was a breathtaking place, full of people. But over time, a shadow fell across the land. Kindness and respect were replaced by cruelty and corruption. The beautiful earth, once a reflection of its creator, was now filled with violence. Yet, in the midst of this growing darkness, one man stood out. His name was Noah. Noah wasn't perfect. Nobody is, but he walked faithfully with God, trying to live a life of honesty and integrity in a world that had forgotten the meaning of those words. He was a glimmer of light in the overwhelming gloom. One day, as Noah looked up at the sky, a voice he knew well spoke to him. It was God. He told Noah that the world's wickedness had become unbearable, a deep wound that couldn't be healed. A great flood, a cleansing torrent, was coming to wash the earth clean. But God wasn't abandoning his creation. He had a rescue plan, and Noah was at the very center of it. God gave Noah a task so immense, so unbelievable, it would have sounded like madness to anyone else. Build an ark. This wasn't just any boat. It was a colossal vessel, an architectural marvel designed by God himself. Longer than a football field, 3 stories high, filled with rooms, and sealed with pitch to be completely waterproof. God gave Noah the exact blueprints, the type of wood to use, the precise dimensions, everything he needed to make it strong enough to survive a world-altering storm. Imagine the scene: Noah and his sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth, alongside their wives, working tirelessly. The rhythmic sound of saws cutting through gopher wood, the constant pounding of hammers day after day, year after year. Their neighbors must have thought they'd lost their minds. An ark, here, on dry land, miles from any sea. They would have scoffed. The laughter and mockery must have been relentless. But Noah's faith was his compass. He trusted God's word. Even when it made no sense to the world around him, he just kept building. Then, just as the last peg was hammered in, something miraculous began to happen. The horizon started to move. Animals, creatures of every shape and size, began to appear, not in a chaotic stampede, but in an orderly procession. To buy two, they came, majestic lions walking peacefully beside gentle lambs, towering elephants and graceful giraffes, eagles with their vast wingspans and tiny, creeping insects. Just as God had promised, they all made their way toward the ark. Noah and his family didn't have to round them up. They were guided by an unseen hand. They simply opened the great door and welcomed them in, an incredible, living library of all the world's wildlife, gathering for a journey no one else believed was coming. It was a sight that would defy all logic, a testament to a plan far greater than human understanding. Finally, the day arrived. A strange stillness fell over the land as the sky grew heavy and dark with menacing clouds. God spoke one last time before the storm. Go into the ark, you and all your family. Noah, his wife, his 3 sons, and their wives walked up the ramp, taking one last look at the world they knew. When they were all safely inside, the great door of the ark swung shut, sealed not from the inside, but from the outside. Then it began, a single drop of rain, then another, then a torrent. Rain poured from the heavens with a force never seen before, but that wasn't all. Fountains of the great deep burst forth from the ground itself. The world was being unmade. Streams swelled into raging rivers, rivers into churning oceans. The flood waters rose relentlessly, lifting the massive ark, which began to float, a solitary vessel of hope on an endless, churning sea. For 40 days and 40 nights, the downpour was ceaseless. The water rose higher and higher, covering the tallest trees, the highest hills, and eventually, even the mightiest mountains. Everything and everyone outside the ark was swept away in the deluge. The world was returned to a watery chaos. But inside, rocked by the waves, but held secure, were Noah, his family, and all the animals. They were safe, not just because of the strong wooden walls, but because they were wrapped in the protection of God's promise. The ark drifted on the face of the waters, a lonely sanctuary in a world reborn. At last, after long months adrift, the rain stopped and the underground springs were closed. The waters, slowly, began to recede. The ark, which had been carried on the current, finally came to a gentle rest on the slopes of the mountains of Ararat. The world was still and quiet. To see if the land was ready, Noah sent out a raven, which flew back and forth. Then he sent out a dove. The first time, it returned, finding no place to land. A week later, he sent it out again. This time, it came back in the evening, and in its beak was a freshly plucked olive leaf. It was a sign, a beautiful, simple sign that life was returning. Hope, fresh and green, had returned to the earth. When the ground was finally dry, God gave the command, "Come out of the ark." The great door was opened, and a stream of life poured out onto the clean, new world. The animals, after their long confinement, rushed out with joyful energy, roaming the hills, soaring into the sky, ready to fill the earth once more. The first thing Noah did was build an altar. He and his family gathered together and gave thanks to God, their hearts overflowing with gratitude for their miraculous survival. And in that moment of profound thankfulness, God made a covenant, a sacred promise to Noah, his family, and every living creature. He set a brilliant arc of color across the clouds, a rainbow. This wasn't just a beautiful atmospheric phenomenon. It was a sign from God himself, a promise that never again would a flood of this magnitude destroy all life on earth. The rainbow became an eternal reminder of God's mercy, his faithfulness, and the beauty of a new beginning. The story of Noah's Ark is so much more than an ancient tale about a great flood. It's a powerful story about faith in the face of overwhelming doubt, about the courage to obey when the whole world is laughing at you, and about the unshakable hope that can rise even after the most devastating storm. It reminds us that even when our own worlds feel broken, chaotic, or flooded with trouble, renewal is always possible. The storms in our lives, no matter how fierce, do not last forever. And God's promises, like that rainbow, are there to carry us through the darkest times. So the next time you see a rainbow stretching across the sky, take a moment to remember Noah. Remember his trust, his perseverance, and the incredible story of survival and the power of starting again. Thank you so much for watching with us today. If this story resonated with you, please give this video a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more stories of faith and hope. We'll see you in the next one.